Hello again everyone, and welcome to my next video. I'm sure you're all familiar with the story of the boy who cried wolf from Aesop's fables. It is the tale of a shepherd boy who had nothing better to do and decided to whip up some fun and excitement. So he ran into town shouting that a wolf was coming. All of the townsfolk started to run in that direction with clubs and pitchforks in hand looking for the wolf. But there was no wolf. And the boy laughed so hard because he was able to trick everyone. Then the next day, he did it again. And again the townspeople came out with their clubs and pitchforks, but there was no wolf. At that point, they decided to never believe him again. On the third day, the boy came running into town shouting that this time there really was a wolf coming. But the townsfolk just ignored him, and then the wolf came and ate up all of the boy's sheep. Now, do you know who the little shepherd boys of today are? Well, they are none other than the little attention seekers on Instagram with nothing better to do than have created a commotion about my divorce with Lana Ralbach-Kin. They have rallied the Twitter mob to verbally attack me, calling me a Gett refuser. Thanks to the existence of this channel, however, many people have already done their due diligence in investigating the facts of my case. So now they won't believe a word that these immature young women are saying about my case and others. The good people can see that these young aguna activists consider all men abusers, regardless of the facts. Of course, no two divorce cases are alike. So trying to destroy a man's reputation is not only a great sin, but also a chilul Hashem, and will leave the perpetrator with zero credibility in the end. I don't hold out much hope that a hot-headed young girl on Instagram would have the patience to investigate any of the facts or to determine what in fact is a real aguna and what is not, because that would require them to use their heads. Still, my job is to try and educate the public, which is why I am making this video. Now, on a personal level, I wouldn't even have bothered to respond to these silly, immature people, but for the fact that this is a channel where I uncover rabbinic corruption, confront fake aguna abuse allegations, educate the public on authentic Torah laws relating to marriage and divorce, and expose the lies of aguna enablers, especially in my own case. Therefore, I decided to make this statement and issue a response. In order for you to better understand the context of this video, I would strongly suggest for you to watch my video titled Lana Ralbach-Kin, the Fake and Phony Aguna. You will see in that video that I sympathize with real agunot, and at the same time I call out the fake and phony agunot who don't deserve the spotlight that they crave so much. I also recommend that you view the accompanying documents that are listed in the description box below, because unlike the aguna activists, I don't deal in hot air, but rather I back up everything I say with evidence and exhibits. That is how legal decisions are decided both in Jewish and in secular courts. Nothing is decided in the court of public opinion except the stuff of tabloid fodder. This principle of investigating facts even applies to Batei Din, which in many cases, including my own, did not do their due diligence in investigating all the facts. Some of them neglect to do so intentionally because they have decided to join the corrupt rabbinic club in order to pursue the lucrative Gett writing business. But the corrupt rabbis did not anticipate the appearance of this YouTube channel, which not only presents hard facts and evidence, but also refutes their corrupt rulings. And as a result, Lana Ralbach-Kin today finds herself totally bereft of rabbinic support due to the many holes that she has dug herself into, which they cannot get her out of. And now she finds herself having to resort to receiving the help of the Twitter mob to do her dirty work for her. Everyone knows that the Torah forbids accepting testimony from a woman. If you ever wanted to know why this is so, just try going on Instagram. The women on there make statements lacking proof, distorting or omitting facts, or they just plain lie. So while it is halacha in the Torah, here you have anecdotal evidence demonstrating why this rule about women's testimony was needed. Now, I'm not coming here to disparage anyone. I am merely pointing out the facts. In a story that appeared just recently in the Israeli press, linked below, a woman with a prominent high-tech job was having an affair at the office, so she faked a rape in order to explain to her significant other why she was coming home late. The article is in Hebrew, so you might want to use Google Translate to access the article in English. So do you see now the length a woman will go to in order to cover her tracks? By engaging in this lie, she wasted precious police resources, money, time, and medical procedures. But worst of all, she has made a mockery of the entire concept of rape, the same thing that activists have done to the concept of aguna. We now have the concept of the fake aguna, which is one who doesn't really want to get, but only pretends to want one. And a fake aguna is also one that tries to manipulate the system, but ultimately fails to do so, and instead winds up in violation of halacha without any admission of guilt or attempt to correct her wrongdoings. As you know by now, my story is an open book, and while anyone who wants the truth can find the evidence they seek, it seems to me that immature people would rather continue to besmirch and defame. I have never been afraid to air my story in public, simply because I have nothing to hide, and the truth speaks for itself. At the same time, I realize that my channel has also become a voice for other men who have been wrongfully accused of abuse, when in fact all they're doing is exercising their halachic rights within the guidance of halacha. That does not mean that in every divorce the man is innocent. I acknowledge that some men out there are abusers, the same way I acknowledge that there are also women who abuse men. The mistake is to lump all men together as abusers and all women as innocent victims. And speaking of abuse, I want to address the ridiculous statement being made that Gett refusal is a form of domestic abuse. We must remember that a Gett is a religious procedure, and nowhere in the Torah does it say that Gett refusal is a form of domestic abuse, nor is this dubious concept found in any penal code of any government. The notion of equating Gett refusal with domestic abuse is simply a 21st century fabrication and slogan which is only used to rally the mob. So again, I could not make a statement defending all men and every one of their actions. However, I can confidently say that there are numerous women who pretend to be victims of Gett refusal in order to receive community support by cunningly orchestrating the proceedings in a manner that paints them as the abuser, and they are getting away with it. I have stated previously that aguna depicted in the Talmud is a woman who must have at the minimum 3 of the following conditions in order to be rendered a true aguna, and therefore being entitled to receive the help that a real aguna deserves. A. She is totally guiltless as to why she's in a state of abandonment. This means that traditionally the aguna was a woman whose husband was lost at sea without verification if he's alive or dead, and her status was not caused by anything that is her fault. B. The aguna has no remedy to remarry. This means there's nothing she can do to remarry until the final status of her husband, alive or dead, is to be determined. This is the true meaning of a chained woman. And C. The traditional aguna wants her husband home and not dead. She would do anything to have her husband being involved in the lives of the children. However, we find ourselves today as a society with a completely distorted concept of aguna, where in fact many women want their husband dead or at the very least imprisoned. Many are not guiltless, but rather have contributed to their state of abandonment by violating halacha, when instead they readily have a solution to remarry if they so wish. Many aguna rabble-rousers are misusing the term Gett refuser, which refers to a man or a woman who adamantly is refusing to give or accept a Gett without any justification whatsoever. And in fact, women are leading the men as Gett refusers in the state of Israel today. If you don't believe me, click on the article link below, which reports on this. It should be obvious to all that a man who has deposited a Gett at a Bezdin, as I have done, has demonstrated that he wants his wife to have a Gett. So how could he be called a Gett refuser? Additionally, many aguna activists are portraying get refusal as if it were some kind of disease. But actually, get refusal is a symptom and not a disease. You see, when a man refuses to give a get, many times it is because his wife cheated him out of his halachic rights to his children, property, and assets. He feels that his wife essentially stole what belongs to him by using the secular courts, something that is clearly against halacha. His reaction is the same as anybody else who feels trapped, and therefore uses the get which the Torah has empowered him with in regards to whether or not to grant one. In some cases, a man will refuse to give a get simply because he loves his family and doesn't want to see it broken up. If it means going to couples therapy, he will do it, and that is acceptable. The notion of a get that must be given on demand is mentioned nowhere in halacha. It is simply false information pushed by the aguna activists. Again, I cannot speak for all men in all cases, because each divorce circumstance has its own unique details in halachas. But I do have an obligation to expose the lies of the aguna activist mob on social media, who are hell-bent on accusing all men whose wives did not receive a get as a get refuser. These same activists have also labeled me a get refuser, and therefore I will now detail for you all of the points that refute their statements and demonstrate that these Instagram bullies are the actual abusive, coercive extortionists whose main agenda is to smear people's reputations. And while they seek to coerce a get against halacha, a get cannot be coerced in every case, since our sages have been very clear as to when coercion can be applied. For a better understanding of this, please watch my video titled Halachic Parameters of Get Coercion. The aguna ma paints all men with a broad brush without a care in the world to analyze the facts of each case. Allow me now to once again to highlight for you some important facts of my case, which will serve to illustrate to you once and for all that Lana Ralba Kin's hands are unclean when it comes to her divorce proceedings. Lana has cried many crocodile tears, even though she's an aguna imposter. She has tried to manipulate the proceedings in such a way as to deprive me of my halachic rights and to make me appear as a get refuser, while nothing could be further from the truth. It is not my word that I want you to believe, but rather the facts as presented and backed up by hard documents, which you will see below, which will show that Lana is undeserving of being called an aguna and that I am not a get refuser. I implore anyone that cares about the truth to look at the documents and links below in the description box to verify any statements that I make. Point number 1. A get has been written and deposited at my Bezdin since 2008, but Lana has refused to follow the Bezdin's directions and to pick up the get. Number 2. Lana violated halacha from the beginning by litigating in civil courts. I have mentioned before that litigating in civil courts from the get-go is a violation of halacha. A Jew must arbitrate the entire divorce, including custody, visitation, and child support at a bezdin. You cannot have it both ways. You either seek relief from the civil courts or from a bezdin, because halacha does not allow both. Lana placed her bet on the civil courts, and she lost. The Ramah in Shulchan Aruch clearly states that someone going to civil courts is not afforded a hearing at a bezdin after the fact, unless she fixes what has been wronged and restitution is made. However, Lana refused and has never dismissed her family court orders of child support and custody, and so remains in violation of halacha until this day. Her insistence on alienating my son from me all of these years is a form of child abuse, and yet through all of her abuses, I still deposited a get with my bezdin, despite the fact that I had all the reasons and halachic backing to withhold the get for all of her infractions. I have even paid all of my child support obligations without so much as ever making one late payment. Therefore, it is out of my hands now, and I have fulfilled my duty. I have not refused to give a get because I already gave it. If anyone has a problem with that, they are welcome to take it up with my Bezdin. They are the ones who are requesting of Lana to comply with halacha in order to receive a kosher get, but she has voluntarily refused to comply with the Bezdin. Lana is as recalcitrant as they come, and on many fronts. Number 3, Lana has manipulated the civil court proceedings in order to hide from the courts and from Bezdin pertinent facts. She did this by convincing a family court judge to impose a gag order so that I couldn't discuss with any Bezdin some hair-raising facts, which, if discovered, would have granted me sole custody of our son. For example, Lana filed for divorce at Rockland County Supreme Court, but after the judge ordered her to deliver her computers to my forensic examiner, who made some serious findings, she got scared and dismissed her entire divorce petition before the trial could begin, and the evidence could therefore not be presented. Has anyone ever heard of a woman who purportedly wants a get, but in reality dismisses her civil divorce petition? I didn't think so. Number 4, after she dismissed her New York divorce, I moved to California, and 6 months later, I started a petition of status-only divorce. That means that I sought a bill of divorce without asking the court to extract any money or custody from her. At that point, she manipulated the California court by saying, I don't want a divorce, I want an annulment, not a divorce. Throughout the proceedings, the judge saw through her lies and denied her motions of relief for a get. Even her secondary and tertiary appeals to higher courts were all thrown out due to lack of merit. She even received assistance from the Rabbinic Council of California, the RCC, by having Rabbi Adlerstein testify in court as to why I should pay her $500,000 if I don't give her a get. But all of this was denied. The judge in Los Angeles Superior Court even had to remind Adlerstein that a coerced get is not kosher, even as she denied his request. Lana's attorney wanted the judge to impose the New York get law against me, since Lana claimed that I ran away from New York to avoid it. However, the judge saw right through all her lies, since Lana first filed for divorce in New York, where she could have sought relief from the courts for a get due to the get law, but she decided instead to dismiss her case in its entirety. So how could I be running from get law if she dismissed the New York divorce petition? Then she jumped into family court in New York to obtain custody and child support orders, where she asked the judge to impose upon me a gag order about those computers in an effort to conceal the truth, which I felt was a danger to all the children at home, along with some other more relevant information, a move that was unconstitutional and also against halacha. As I said, the judge in California saw through all of these manipulations. Number 5. While I myself went through a peaceful and amicable divorce with my first wife, Lana has a history of acrimonious divorce with a previous husband, Dr. Stephen Presser. As a matter of fact, Dr. Presser had to flee to Los Angeles the same way I did in order to avoid further harassment from her. But I'll bet no one cares to look into that history. You know what? In medicine, if you attempt to treat a patient without performing what's called a past medical history, you are rendered a derelict doctor. I was married to Lana during that period that she prevented her ex-husband from visiting with his daughters, as she's now doing with me. Parental alienation is a form of serious child abuse, so it is repugnant to see how aguna activists ignore the plight of children who are being abused by their mothers in this way. They focus only on women's rights because their true agenda is not domestic abuse, but rather female power and dominance. If their real intention was to prevent domestic abuse, then these same activists should be protesting against women committing parental alienation. The giving of a get is a halachic procedure and mitzvah, and litigating in court is a halachic infraction and an avera. Therefore, the aguna activist argument that a woman can violate the Torah by litigating in civil court, alienating a man's children, and still demand a get, is the same as somebody robbing a bank, stealing from the IRS, and then demanding to receive government food stamps and welfare. There are numerous examples in Chazal that demonstrate how a woman can lose her rights to a get due to her own actions. So rather than considering it get refusal or domestic abuse, the Torah looks at the withholding of a get as a halachic tool utilized by rabbis against women who violate the laws of divorce. It is much the same thing as a judge who imprisons a felon for committing a felony. No one would call the judge a domestic abuser for merely following the U.S. penal codes. If someone is unhappy with the Torah laws, they have every right to change religions if they want to, but the Torah itself can never be changed. But you should know that the statements that I make in this video will probably have no effect on the aguna Instagram mob, as they are blinded by a false purpose. They have no interest in halacha, fairness, or the truth. However, I wanted my response to be on the record for future reference. But let it be known that these so-called activists are the real abusers, because those who support an abuser are themselves abusers. Shame on the aguna activists for ignoring the true victims, the children of the Jewish nation that so much depend on their fathers to teach them Torah mitzvahs and to succeed in life. The children's cause was abandoned in favor of women violators of Torah and halacha and promoting strife and discord in the community. They are wasting their time in their bullying attempts, since I have already made my case loud and clear, and nothing can stop the locomotive of the truth. So therefore, my advice to the Twitter bullies, if they even get this far in the video, is to do their research before spewing their hateful rhetoric. The real story here is of Lana Rabakin, the failed and fake aguna, who chose to rebel against the Torah by seeking relief through the civil courts, and having failed that, resorted to using the power of social media to vent her displeasure. I have offered her no less than 4 bezdins, and she has refused all of them. My first bezdin of Rabbi Gabiov, very well accepted by most rabbis, was proposed to her, but she still refused to appear. After that, she obtained the gag order, preventing me from revealing to any bezdin what was she doing at home, which was detrimental to the welfare of my son and her daughters. Otherwise, I would have surely been granted custody, would not have lost money from her needless and wasteful civil court petitions, and obviously would not have had my reputation destroyed. So I have one last message that I wish to impart, and it is aimed directly at Lana and her daughter Dina, the purveyor of lies. I am asking them to announce to all of their followers on Instagram that they give me express permission to reveal to the world all of the information that was deleted from those computers, which is all of the data that was concealed from the courts, and also the contents of the now expired gag order. For many years, I have held myself back from revealing what she has done, and I did so for the sake of her entire family's dignity. But now I say that if Lana and Dina are going to slander me in public, they should at least play fair and allow all the facts to come out, and let the people judge for themselves if the concealment of these facts from Bezdin was justified. The proverbial ball is now in their court. Only time will tell if they choose to make things right for everyone involved or not. As always, thank you for watching, and see you all in the next video.